The first thing my fiancé gave his sister was my chair. It was a cheap folding chair with a strip of blue tape across the back, but I had carried it to 32 markets, and Paige was sitting in it behind my cedar counter as though she'd been measured for the spot. The second thing Aaron gave her was my stall. "Paige is running Glasshouse today," he announced, loud enough for the vendors on both sides to hear. "She has actual retail experience, so let's not make this weird." He held out his hand for the cart I was gripping. "Give me the rest of the crates, Mara. All of them. We need the inventory out before the gates open." Behind him, my stained glass panels hung from the display walls I had built in our garage. Paige had replaced my linen sign with a white banner that read, "Paige Mercer Home." The gold lettering still creased from its packaging. A customer wandered in through the half-open front of the stall and picked up a blue heron sun catcher. "Oh, that one's gorgeous," Paige said, rising from my chair. "I only have 3 like it." She had 1 like it, mine. Before I found enough air to speak, she tapped the sale into my card reader. The little brass bell on the payment app chimed. Aaron smiled at me with tight, pleading confidence, as if we had discussed any of this, as if I was late to an agreement instead of early to my own robbery. What scared me wasn't that his mother and sister had finally gone too far. It was the sudden certainty that Aaron knew exactly where too far was and had moved the line for them. 6 weeks earlier, I was barefoot in the garage when the festival acceptance arrived. The soldering iron was cooling in its stand. Rain ticked against the raised garage door, just inside the rubber lip, and the whole room smelled like wet pavement, flux, and the tomato soup Aaron was reheating in the kitchen. I almost deleted the email because the subject line began with "Harvest Glass Festival Vendor Notice," which sounded like the start of a polite rejection. Then I saw "Congratulations." I read it twice before I made any noise. "Aaron." From inside the house, he called, "If this is about the bowls, they're soaking." Aaron. He came through the laundry room holding a wooden spoon. He wore sweatpants and one of my old festival shirts, the black one with a sunburst logo peeling off the chest. "What happened?" I turned the laptop toward him. He leaned over me, smelling like oregano, and read the first paragraph. Then he hit the workbench with the spoon so hard that a glass cutter rolled off and landed on his foot. He swore, hopped once, and wrapped me in a hug anyway. "You got in. I got in. You got in." He kissed the side of my head, then looked at the screen again. "Wait. Main Pavilion." I nodded against his shoulder. The Harvest Glass Festival wasn't the biggest arts event in the state, but it was the one buyers came to with measurements from their windows and photographs of empty walls. 2 gallery owners attended every year. The festival rejected more artists than it accepted, and it reserved the main pavilion for vendors whose work had passed a separate jury review. I'd applied 3 times. Aaron picked me up. The spoon was still in his hand, leaving a tomato-colored streak on the back of my shirt. "Put me down. You're fancy now." I'm holding a hot soldering iron. He lowered me so quickly my teeth clicked together. I held up the iron, which was unplugged. "You're a terrible person," he said. "I'm a main pavilion terrible person." He laughed and kissed me properly. For a few minutes, the garage was exactly what I had believed it to be. Mine, but with room for him in it. Above the bench hung my first cobalt-blue inventory tag. The ink had faded until the item number was barely visible. I'd used blue tags ever since my first outdoor market, where an artist named Ruth had watched me struggle to distinguish my wrapped panels from another vendor's crates. "Leave evidence of your own hands," she'd told me, tearing a strip from her roll of blue stock. "On the piece, on the box, on the paperwork. People get imaginative around things they didn't make." Aaron tapped the old tag with the spoon. "Maybe we should frame this." "We?" "You're going to be unbearable about that word now, aren't you?" "I'm going to be very precise about that word." He smiled. "Your weird little glass empire, then." That evening, he told his family before I had finished reading the vendor packet. We were supposed to have dinner with Diane and Paige on Sunday, but Aaron took a picture of my acceptance email and dropped it into their group chat. Within a minute, his phone rang. He put Diane on speaker. "My brilliant girl," she said. For one warm second, I let myself enjoy it. Then she added, "Now we can finally make this into a proper business." Aaron's eyes flicked toward me. "It is a proper business," I said. "You know what I mean." Diane's voice carried the patient brightness she used whenever she intended to be forgiven in advance. A real presentation, a sales strategy, someone at the front who knows how to move merchandise. "I move merchandise. You make beautiful things. That's different." Aaron leaned against the counter. "Mom, what?" "It's a compliment." Paige's voice came faintly through Diane's end. "Ask her what her conversion rate was at Winter Foundry." "I can hear you," I said. "Then I don't have to ask." Aaron took the phone off speaker. He walked into the hallway and spoke to his mother quietly, one hand pressed over his free ear. I stood at the kitchen island with the acceptance packet open on my laptop, staring at a paragraph about approved inventory. All displayed work must be designed and fabricated by the accepted artist. The accepted artist must remain on site during public hours, except for reasonable breaks. Booth assignments are non-transferable. I should have made Aaron read it that night. Instead, I scrolled down to the booth dimensions and started sketching a new display wall. Sunday dinner was at Diane's house, where every room looked arranged for an appraisal. Even the fruit in the bowl had good posture. She had made pot roast, which Aaron loved, and set out the serving dish I'd given her the previous Christmas. 3 copper leaves, cut from glass and soldered along a curved branch, caught the light above the dining table. Paige arrived 20 minutes late wearing a cream coat and carrying a bakery box. "I brought dessert," she said. Diane took the box with both hands. "See? Someone understands hospitality." "I brought the wine," Aaron said. "You always bring wine. Your father trained you." Diane's husband had died 4 years earlier, and she invoked his standards whenever the living disappointed her. He had apparently known how to sharpen knives, refinance a house, choose peaches, and recognize when a guest needed more gravy. Paige kissed Aaron's cheek, then mine. "Congratulations," she said seriously. "Harvest is hard to get." "Thank you." I applied for a retail booth there once, before the boutique closed. She took off her coat and draped it over the back of my chair. "They said my product mix wasn't distinctive enough." "I remember," Aaron said. Of course he did. The closure of Paige's boutique had become family weather. It was never discussed directly, but every gathering took place beneath it. Paige had leased a second location after 1 strong year. Then the landlord raised the rent. An online order arrived damaged, and a home decor trend she'd invested in died with remarkable speed. Diane called the failure bad timing. Paige called it market volatility. Aaron called it the reason we all needed to be gentler with her. No one called it 3 years ago. Over dinner, Diane asked about my stall dimensions, electrical access, lighting, stock levels, and pricing. Some of the questions were intelligent. That was part of her talent. She could inspect the seams of your life while making you feel foolish for wanting privacy. "You'll need help," she said. "Aaron's loading in with me." "I mean help selling." "I sell my work every weekend. At small markets," Paige said. "Harvest customers expect an experience. They expect stained glass. I'm bringing stained glass." Paige smiled down at her plate. Diane cut a carrot with the edge of her fork. "Mara, there's no insult in admitting Paige has skills you don't. There's an insult in deciding I don't have them." Aaron touched my knee beneath the table. It looked affectionate from across the room. The pressure of his fingers said stop. "Mom's just excited," he said. "Exactly." Diane brightened. "Why don't we make it easy? Paige can cover lunches, maybe the busier afternoon hours." "No," I said. The word came out small but complete. Paige's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. I took a sip of wine. "The festival requires the accepted artist to be there, and I don't need sales coverage." "You'll use the bathroom at some point," Paige said. "I have vendor friends." "Fine." She put down her fork. "God forbid your future sister-in-law hold a card reader for 10 minutes. Aaron sighed through his nose. Diane reached for the gravy. "We're trying to support you. I appreciate that. I'm saying I have it handled. The conversation moved on, apparently. Diane asked Aaron about a client at work. Paige described a restaurant that had served her cold risotto. I let myself believe the matter had ended because everyone had stopped speaking about it. After dessert, I went to the dining room to retrieve my phone and found Diane standing beneath the copper leaves, turning the lowest one between her fingers. "These have held up nicely," she said. "They should." Paige could have sold a dozen sets like this at the boutique. She could have ordered them from me. Diane let the leaf swing. "You're going to be family soon, Mara. You don't have to invoice every kindness. I made that as a gift for you, and I treasure it. That doesn't make the next 12 gifts." Her mouth tightened, though her voice stayed smooth. "You're very alert to being taken advantage of. Occupational hazard." When Aaron and I got into the car, he waited until we were halfway down the block. "You embarrassed Paige." I said no to Paige. "You know those feel the same to her right now. That's not a reason for me to give her half my booth." "No one asked for half." "Your mother did. She asked if Paige could help." I looked out at Diane's trimmed hedges sliding past the passenger window. "Why didn't you tell them about the festival contract?" "Because I didn't memorize your festival contract. You photographed it." "I photographed the congratulations part, Mara. I was proud of you." He sounded wounded, and that was the trick of Aaron at his most convincing. He rarely denied the thing that mattered. He placed something tender beside it and waited for me to feel cruel. At home, he carried my empty wine glass to the sink and loaded it into the dishwasher. I went into the garage and worked until midnight. The following Thursday, 3 panels disappeared from my drying rack. I noticed because the rack looked wrong without the tall foxglove piece leaning at the left edge. Beside it had been 2 smaller swallows, both already tagged and entered in my inventory sheet. I checked the packing table, then the padded slots beneath the workbench. "Aaron?" He was upstairs on a conference call. I texted him photographs of the empty spaces. He responded with a thumbs up, then, a minute later, Diane borrowed them for the luncheon. "She'll bring them back Sunday." I read the message twice. The garage keypad log showed an entry at 10:14 that morning. I called Diane. She answered over the clink of dishes. "Darling, I was just about to send you a picture. The centerpieces look stunning." "You came into the garage?" Aaron gave me the code months ago for emergencies. A luncheon isn't an emergency. Obviously, I used the code I already had. In the background, someone asked where she wanted the place cards. "Diane, those pieces are festival inventory. They're sitting on tables, not crossing state lines. They were wrapped and tagged. I was careful. That isn't the point." She lowered her voice. "What would you like me to do, Mara? Pull the decor while 30 guests are arriving?" I looked at the empty rack. A curl of blue paper lay on the floor where one tag had caught on the wood and torn. "No," I said. "Keep them there." "Thank you. I knew you'd understand." "I'll send an invoice." Silence settled between us, clean and cold. Then Diane gave a little laugh. "For borrowing centerpieces. For event rental, delivery I wasn't told about, and any damage." The warmth vanished from her voice. "Discuss this with Aaron. They're my pieces." I ended the call before she could correct my pronoun. Aaron came downstairs an hour later and found me photographing the torn tag. "You invoiced my mother?" "Yes." "She's furious." "She can pay furious or return them furious." He stared at me, then rubbed both hands over his face. "They're glass decorations." "They're my inventory." "I know that." "Do you?" His hands fell. For a second, he looked less angry than tired. "Mara, she wanted people to see your work. She wanted free centerpieces. She talks about you constantly. She brags about you. She entered my locked workspace and took finished pieces without asking me. It isn't locked." I looked at him. He realized it too late. The garage keypad beeped behind us as its light timed out, a soft electronic chirp in the sudden quiet. Aaron glanced toward the door. Then he said, "It's our house." Above my bench, the first faded blue tag stirred in the breeze from the open garage, turning slowly on its pin. "It's our house," I repeated. "That's not what I meant." It sounded very complete. He moved toward me, but I stepped around the packing table. The torn blue tag was still between my fingers. "I mean, my mother isn't some stranger breaking into the garage," he said. "She has access to our home. For emergencies." "Yes." She used emergency access to shop without me. She borrowed 3 things. "Would you go into Paige's apartment and borrow her dining table?" "Of course not." "Why?" "Because that would be insane." He hurt himself. His jaw shifted. I set the torn tag on the bench and smoothed it flat. The serial number was intact. GH117, the foxglove panel. Aaron watched my hand. "What do you want me to do?" he asked. "Change the garage code. Mom uses it when we travel. She waters one fern. That fern would be dead without her. That fern wants to be dead. It's been making that clear for 2 years. His mouth twitched before he stopped it. Usually, that was where we found our way back to each other. One stupid line, one reluctant smile, and the sharpest part of the argument got wrapped in affection until neither of us had to touch it. I didn't smile. "Change the code," I said, "and don't give it to her again." He leaned against the dryer. "Fine. Now. You want me to do it in front of you?" "I want it done before your mother decides she needs matching dessert accents." He pulled out his phone and opened the keypad app. His movements became precise and aggrieved. He deleted Diane's guest code, changed the main code, then held the screen toward me. "There. Thank you." "You're welcome." Neither of us sounded grateful. Diane returned the panels Sunday afternoon. She sent Paige to the door with them. Paige had wedged all 3 pieces into one quilted moving sleeve, meant for framed prints. I carried them straight to the dining table and unwrapped them while she stood with her car keys looped around one finger. The swallows were fine. The foxglove panel had a pale scrape across the zinc border and a new wobble where one solder joint met the frame. "What happened here?" Paige bent over it. "Nothing happened. It didn't leave my studio like this. Maybe the light's catching it." The light didn't loosen the joint. She straightened. Mom had 36 people in the house. One of the catering guys may have bumped the table. And no one mentioned it. No one noticed. I noticed. "Congratulations." I looked at her. She exhaled and tucked her hair behind both ears, an old gesture that made her look briefly younger and more uncertain than she liked. "Send me the repair cost," she said. I sent Diane an invoice. "For the rental, send me the repair." "Why you?" "Because I packed them." It surprised me enough that I stopped checking the frame. Paige looked toward the hallway where Aaron was pretending not to listen from the kitchen. "I'm not trying to steal your precious glass kingdom," she said quietly. "Then don't carry pieces out of it." "Mom said you agreed." "I didn't know until they were on the tables." Her face changed, only slightly. Aaron told her it would be fine. From the kitchen came the metallic knock of a pan being placed too firmly into a drawer. Paige lifted her voice. "You told her it would be fine, right?" Aaron appeared in the doorway holding a dish towel. I said Mara would probably be okay with it. "No," I said. "You told me Diane borrowed them." Past tense. He looked from me to Paige. "Can we not turn this into a trial?" Paige picked up her purse. "Great. Send me the repair cost." Diane paid the rental invoice 4 days later. The transfer arrived at 6:12 in the morning with no note. By 8, she had removed me from the group chat about the wedding shower. I discovered that when Aaron asked whether I preferred rosemary crackers or the seeded ones. For what? He looked down at his phone. The shower. What shower? His thumb stopped scrolling. We stood on opposite sides of the kitchen island. Between us was a stack of sample invitation envelopes, a bowl containing one soft apple, and the festival inventory binder I'd started carrying into the house with me. "My mom's planning a couple's shower," he said carefully. "I know there's supposed to be a shower. I didn't know there was a cracker referendum. She probably thought you were busy." She removed me. "Temporarily. Is that a special setting?" He put down the phone. You sent her a bill. She paid it. And now you've both made your points. What was mine? That you expect to be compensated. For my work. For everything, apparently. I glanced at the sample envelopes. I had addressed 12 of them the previous night because his handwriting looked like a seismograph reading. Do you really want to have that conversation? He followed my eyes and shoved the envelopes into a neater stack. No, he said. Me neither. I took the inventory binder to the garage. The foxglove repair took 2 hours. The scrape remained, so I replaced the zinc border and updated the condition photograph. While I had the binder open, I checked every piece against its serial number. Then I logged into the festival vendor portal to upload the new image. My password didn't work. I tried again, slower. The same red message appeared. I reset it through my business email and got in. Nothing looked different until I opened account settings. The primary contact email was Aaron's. His phone number had replaced mine beneath it. The emergency contact field, which I'd left blank, listed Paige. I stood staring until the screen dimmed. When I called Aaron, he was driving. Hey, what's up? Why are you the primary contact on my festival account? There was a pause filled by the hush of tires. I fixed that last week. You changed it. The organizer sent a load-in question while you were soldering. You didn't answer for 3 hours. I answered the same afternoon, after I already handled it. What did you handle? The vehicle height form. It wasn't exactly a creative decision. You changed my contact information to fill out a vehicle form, so notices wouldn't get missed. Why is Paige my emergency contact? A turn signal clicked steadily on his end. I don't know. I might have put her there because she's closer to the festival grounds. She's not working my stall. I know. Then why would the festival call her? They won't. That's what emergency means. No, emergency means they might. He breathed out. Mara, I'm on the interstate. Pull over. I have a meeting. Then we can talk tonight. I hung up, changed the primary email and phone number back, removed Paige, and enabled 2-step verification. 10 minutes later, Aaron texted, Was that necessary? I put my phone face down. At lunchtime, Ruth called. She still did 3 major festivals a year, though arthritis had pushed her towards smaller pieces that required less lifting. Your future sister is launching a collection, she said. My stomach tightened. Where did you see that? She followed my shop account. Everybody follows the old lady because they think I'll tell them secrets. You do tell secrets. I tell useful information. Secrets are boring. She sent me the link. Paige's post showed a photograph of my foxglove panel on Diane's dining table. The scrape was visible if you knew where to look. Beside it sat one of the swallows and a vase of white roses. Something new is taking shape, the caption read. Paige Mercer Home returns this fall with a curated artisan collection. Visit us in the main pavilion at Harvest Glass Festival. Us. I took a screenshot before the post could disappear. Then I called Paige. She answered with, I was going to call you. You're advertising my festival stall. I'm building interest. In your business. In the collaboration. There is no collaboration. Okay, then what would you call me helping you with merchandising and sales? Imaginary. She made a short, irritated sound. Aaron said we'd work out the revenue split. My fingers tightened around the phone. He said what? He said 15% to start, then we'd look at making it ongoing if the festival numbers were good. He offered you 15% of my sales? For the sales I make. You're not making any sales. I have 11 years in retail, Mara, and 0 permission. She went silent. Behind her, I could hear a printer running. Paige was either at Diane's home office or the print shop she used for the boutique. This is why no one can help you, she said. You interpret everything as an invasion. Take the post down. I already paid to promote it. Take it down. You don't own the photograph. Mom took it in her house. I own the work you're using to advertise a collection that doesn't exist. Then call your attorney. She ended the call. I didn't have an attorney to call. I had Ruth, a binder, and an invoice template that still listed my old apartment address. By the time Aaron came home, I had printed the post and placed it beside the festival contract on the kitchen island. He stopped when he saw them. "You promised Paige 15%. I said we could discuss it. She heard a number. Because she kept asking what would make it worth her time. I didn't ask for her time." He loosened his tie as he walked past me. "This is exactly the kind of conversation we should be able to have without you going straight to outrage. When were you planning to have it?" "We're having it now. After she advertised it. I didn't tell her to post that." "Did you tell her not to?" He opened the refrigerator, stared inside, and shut it again. "Mom thinks featuring Paige will draw people who remember the boutique. Your mother thinks Paige's name will improve my acceptance into a festival that already accepted me. She thinks it could help both of you. No, she thinks my work can relaunch Paige. Would that be so awful?" The question was sincere. That hurt more than if he'd shouted. I pulled out a stool and sat down because my knees felt unreliable. "Aaron, the festival accepted me based on the work in that binder. The contract says the booth can't be transferred. It says I have to control the approved inventory. Nobody is transferring anything. You'll be there." "Behind Paige's banner?" His eyes flicked to the printed post. "I'll talk to her about the branding." "There is no branding to discuss." He rubbed the back of his neck. "You know, when we get married, we're going to have to stop acting like every contribution comes with a property line." I stared at him. He continued, hearing wisdom in his own voice now. "I've loaded your crates for years. I've spent weekends in parking lots. I bought the roof rack. Mom has hosted your work. Paige has contacts. We all help. But the second anyone asks you to give something back, suddenly it's contracts and invoices and mine. What do you think you're entitled to?" "I didn't say I was entitled to anything. You offered my sales to your sister. I offered her a chance to earn a percentage. You offered my answer." He looked away. That was the moment the argument stopped being about Paige. I had spent weeks trying to locate the misunderstanding, some poorly explained kindness that had gotten out of hand. But Aaron wasn't confused. He believed the hours he'd given me had purchased authority I had never agreed to sell. "You need to tell her the arrangement is off," I said. He laughed once without humor. "You're giving orders now?" "Yes." "That's not a partnership. Glass House isn't our partnership." His face went still. The refrigerator hummed. Somewhere in the wall, the ice maker dropped a tray with a muffled crash. He walked upstairs without answering. The next morning, the Paige Mercer home post was gone. In its place was a photograph of Paige holding a soldering iron in my garage. She wore protective glasses pushed up on her head and smiled beside the foxglove panel, while Diane stood just outside the frame, visible in the reflection. The caption read, "Learning the process behind our fall collection." I was looking at the photo when my phone buzzed with a security alert from the keypad app. A new guest code had been created at 7:03 that morning. The code was labeled Family. I deleted Family and changed the main code again. Then I changed the password to the keypad app, which logged Aaron out. He texted before I had finished my coffee. "Did you lock me out of my own garage?" I typed. "Did you give your mother and Paige another code after agreeing not to?" 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then returned. "We need to talk about how you're treating my family." I put the phone in a drawer. At 10, I called the number Ruth had given me for a cooperative studio across town. It occupied the back half of an old plumbing warehouse and rented lockable work bays by the month. The woman who answered said one bay had become available that morning. "Can you come see it today?" "I can come now." The bay was 12 feet by 16 with cinder block walls, a steel door, and one high window overlooking a tire shop. It had 2 grounded circuits, a deep utility sink down the hall, and enough room for my workbench if I stopped pretending I needed to keep every scrap of glass I'd ever cut. "It isn't charming," the manager said. "It has a door." That's usually what sells it. I paid the deposit. Ruth arrived that afternoon in a pickup that smelled like cedar chips and peppermint gum. She didn't ask whether I was sure. She just looked at my racks and said, "Big pieces first." People get less reasonable once they realize you've stopped asking. We moved the copper leaf triptych, the marsh panels, and the new circular window with the yellow irises. I packed each one in foam, checked the cobalt tags, and photographed the crates before Ruth slid them beneath a tarp. I left the smaller sun catchers and most of the harvest inventory in the garage. I still had 3 weeks of work to finish, and the cooperative bay wasn't ready for soldering. More than that, moving everything felt like declaring the house already lost. Aaron came home while I was carrying a box of pattern paper to my car. He stopped in the driveway. "What are you doing?" "Moving some work." "Where?" "A studio." "You rented a studio?" "A work bay." "With what money?" "Glass house money." He looked past me into the garage. Empty slots broke up the rows of padded panels. "You moved the irises." "Yes." "That's the piece we were going to hang over the bar at the reception." "No. That's the piece I was going to offer to the gallery buyers at Harvest. You said we could use it at the reception." "I said we could discuss it if it didn't sell." He laughed softly and looked toward the street, embarrassed even though no one was watching. "So now you're taking the business out of the house." "I'm taking finished inventory somewhere your mother can't borrow it." "She didn't create that code. It was labeled family. I created it." "I know. For me. Because you locked me out. You already have the main house code. You needed a separate guest code to enter the garage without leaving your name in the log." His eyes sharpened. "Listen to yourself." "I have been. Finally." He stepped closer and lowered his voice. "I have never taken a cent from you." "You offered 15% to Paige. That is not the same thing." "It's worse. At least if you'd taken it, you might understand it was mine." He stared at the box in my arms. Then he moved aside. "Take whatever you want." I put the box into my car. That night, he slept in the guest room. In the morning, I found a typed proposal on the kitchen island. Aaron had divided Glass House into 3 roles. I would be creative director and production lead. Paige would become sales and brand director. Aaron would be operations director, responsible for logistics, vendor communications, and strategic growth. Diane's name appeared beneath advisory support. There were percentages beside every role. Mine was 55. I read the document while the toaster pushed up 2 slices of bread behind me. I didn't jump, which felt like progress. Aaron came in wearing his gray work shirt and the careful expression of a man arriving at a meeting. "It's a starting point," he said. "You assigned yourself 25% for the work I already do. You put your mother on an advisory board that doesn't exist. She wouldn't have equity. How restrained. Can you look at this seriously?" "I am." He pulled out the stool across from me. "This could protect you, too. We'd define everything. You wouldn't have to feel like people are reaching into your pocket." "Your solution to people reaching into my pocket is giving them scheduled access. My solution is acknowledging that you didn't build this entirely alone." I folded the proposal along the center. His face reddened. "That's incredibly disrespectful. The festival jury never asked who carried the tables. There it is." "What?" "The thing you really think. I'm just the guy who carries your stuff. I thought you were the man who loved me." "I do love you." But apparently it came with vesting terms. He pushed away from the island. "You know what? Load your own van for Harvest." The folded proposal sat between us. "We don't own a van," I said. "My van, then." That Friday, I had a wholesale delivery due at a garden shop 40 miles away. 42 box sun catchers stood stacked by the garage door, each tagged, invoiced, and packed against a purchase order I needed to keep. The owner had given me a second chance after I missed her spring buying window. Aaron left for work early. The van was gone. So were the spare keys from the hook inside the laundry room. I called him once. He declined it. His text arrived a minute later. "Insurance is only in my name, since we're defining property lines." I stood beside the boxes with my coat on. A delivery service quoted me more than the profit on the order and couldn't arrive for 3 hours. Ruth was at a medical appointment. My car could hold half the boxes if I lowered the seats, but the shop required 1 delivery and closed receiving at noon. I called the owner. "I can be there by 1, I said. "I'll waive the delivery charge." "We scheduled staff for this morning." "I know. I'm sorry." There was a pause. "This is the second complication, Mara. The first was a material delay. This is transportation. They're both complications. She canceled the order. I offered a discount. She declined. I offered to consign the pieces. Her voice became gentler, which was worse. We're going with someone who can deliver consistently." After the call, I sat on the concrete floor beside the boxes. The garage was colder than it looked from the kitchen. A draft slipped beneath the door and moved over my hands. The old blue tag above the bench turned on its pin. When Aaron came home, the boxes were still stacked where he'd left them. He walked through the garage slowly. "You didn't deliver?" "You knew I couldn't. You could have rented something." "I tried." He set his keys on the workbench. "I'm sorry the order fell through." "Are you?" "I didn't know they'd cancel." "What did you think would happen?" "I thought you'd solve it. You're always telling everyone you can handle everything yourself." It was such an ugly sentence that he looked startled after saying it. I got up. "Mara." I carried the first 2 boxes toward my car. He blocked the side door. "Stop. I said I was sorry. You were teaching me a lesson." "I was making a point. It cost me $2,800. Now my time has a number." I almost dropped the boxes. He reached for them. "Let me help." I pulled back. His hand remained extended between us. "Move," I said. "Mara, don't do this. You already did it." I took the wholesale stock to the cooperative bay and listed it online at a reduced price. It sold slowly, 1 sun catcher at a time, tying up money I needed for new glass. I cut 3 items from the wedding budget that week. The custom cocktail napkins went first, then the engraved menu cards, then the glass place markers I had planned to make myself. When Diane emailed to ask which shade of blue I wanted for the couple's shower, I replied that I would no longer be producing the table favors. She appeared at the house that evening carrying a binder. Aaron let her in through the front door. She placed the binder on the dining table, removed her camel coat, and folded it across the back of a chair. "We need to stop this before it gets any more expensive," she said. "What's in the binder?" "Receipts." "For what?" "The shower, the rehearsal dinner deposit, alterations to my dress, Paige's dress, your invitations, the life we are all planning around you. Aaron is part of that life." "Of course he is. But he isn't the one threatening to dismantle it over a booth." Aaron stood near the fireplace, arms crossed. He had not warned me she was coming. I opened the binder. Diane had arranged everything in plastic sleeves. Pink tabs marked paid expenses. Yellow tabs marked balances. Between the catering estimate and the florist contract, she had inserted Aaron's partnership proposal. My folded copy, flattened smooth. "You went through the recycling?" I asked him. "I didn't think you'd even read it." "I read the part where your mother advises my business." Diane sat across from me. "That was Aaron's attempt to make you feel included in a practical solution. Included. You would retain majority control. Of my existing business. Of a stronger business." I closed the binder. Diane's composure slipped. "Paige needs a success, Mara." There it was, plain enough to respect in a way. "She needs something that is hers," I said. "She had something. Circumstances took it from her." "I didn't." "No, but you have an opportunity to help." I offered her paid breaks at the booth before she advertised herself as my brand. You rejected her before she had a chance. She announced a collection made from my work. A social media post is not a blood oath. "No, but apparently my engagement is." Aaron stepped forward. "Can we lower the temperature?" Diane looked at him. "You told me she was considering the proposal." I turned to him. He rubbed his forehead. I said she hadn't formally rejected it. I folded it in half and left it in the recycling. That is not communication. It communicated beautifully to me, Diane said. Despite myself, I laughed. She stared at me. Sorry, I said. That one was good. For a moment, something almost human softened her mouth. Then she looked down at her binder. If the festival goes well, she said, Paige can rebuild enough of a customer list to stand on her own. After that, you may not need to work together. So I surrender the biggest event I've ever earned. She uses it to relaunch, and maybe later she stops needing me. You would still make the work. That's the part all of you keep leaving me. I stood. The favors are canceled. Paige is not working my stall. If her name appears anywhere at Harvest, I'll remove it. And if anyone enters the garage for my inventory without my permission, I'm done. Aaron's expression hardened. Done with what? I looked at him, but the answer caught behind my teeth. The business? The house? The wedding? He saw that I couldn't say it. Diane did too. She put on her coat with deliberate care and took the binder. The folded partnership proposal remained on the table. For the next 10 days, the house became painfully polite. Aaron bought his own groceries. I washed only my laundry. He did not ask about the festival, and I did not ask whether he had spoken to Paige. Twice, I found him standing in the garage looking at the cedar display walls. Once, he tightened a loose hinge without mentioning it. I told myself that mattered. The night before load-in, he knocked on the guest room door. I had moved there after the van. I'll take the walls over at 6, he said. You can bring the inventory when the gates open for vendors. I arranged a rental truck. Cancel it. The walls fit the van, and I already have the loading pass. I changed the account. You sent me the pass when we got accepted. I had. The QR code was still in our message history. I'm not giving Paige access, he said. I'm helping you load in, that's all. He looked exhausted. So did I. Letting him take the walls was practical. Refusing meant another rental charge I could barely cover after the canceled wholesale order. It also meant admitting that I no longer trusted him with 6 cedar frames. I wanted to be wrong about the man I was supposed to marry. 6, I said. He nodded once. I'll text you the stall number. When I arrived at the main pavilion the next morning, he had not texted. I found my stall by recognizing the cedar walls. Paige was behind my counter beneath her white banner. The crates she had taken from the garage stood open at her feet. Aaron wore my second vendor badge. A blue heron sun catcher rested in a customer's hand, its cobalt tag swinging from the wing. The payment app chimed. Paige tore off the tag and dropped it beneath the counter. Aaron held out his hand for my cart. Give me the rest of the crates, Mara. Behind him, Diane was smoothing a crease from Paige's banner. I stopped the cart so abruptly that the top crate shifted against its strap. No. Aaron's hand stayed out. Around us, vendors were raising tent walls, testing lights, and calling across the concrete floor for tape and extension cords. The pavilion carried every sound upward into its steel beams and dropped it back louder. Mara, he said. You told me she wouldn't have access. She doesn't have access. She's standing at a counter. Selling my work. We're fixing the presentation. Diane pressed both palms across the banner as if the crease were our main problem. The linen sign looked homemade, she said. It is handmade. You know what I mean. Paige gave the customer a paper bag with the blue heron inside. My blue tag had vanished. She glanced toward us, then turned the card reader around for a second customer. Is this one part of the 3 for $120 group? She asked. I had never sold 3 for $120. I pulled out my phone, opened the payment account, and removed the reader from the registered devices. The screen in front of Paige froze. She tapped it twice. What did you do? I logged you out. I'm in the middle of a sale. No, you're at the end of one. The customer set down the swallow she'd been holding and moved carefully away from the counter. Aaron's voice dropped. Stop making a scene. You brought your sister into my booth and put up her name. Our booth fee came from the household account. Half that money was mine. And the van, loading, walls, and setup came from me. I built those walls. I transported them. Diane stepped between us with one hand lifted. This can still be handled privately. We're standing in public because the three of you arranged it that way. Paige shoved the disabled card reader toward me. You knew I was doing this. I told you not to. Aaron said you'd agreed to let me manage the front. I looked at him. He didn't flinch this time. I said she could help. You told me she wouldn't have access. She isn't taking anything. The money goes into your account. That isn't permission. Oh, for God's sake. He looked around at the half-built booths, checking who was listening. You have been waiting for a chance to punish us. A woman in a red festival jacket appeared at the open side of the stall. She carried a clipboard, a roll of vendor wristbands, and the expression of someone who had already solved 4 electrical disputes before breakfast. Who is the accepted artist here? I am, I said. Paige said, We're together. The woman looked from Paige's banner to the badge clipped to Aaron's jacket. Name? Mara Ellison. She checked the first page on her clipboard. And Glasshouse Studio? Mine. Aaron stepped forward. I'm her fiancé and operations manager. The word manager landed between us with the weight of a rehearsed lie. The organizer glanced down. You're listed as load-in support, Mr. Mercer. The second badge is for a registered booth assistant. That's me, Paige said. Your name? Paige Mercer. The organizer flipped a page. You aren't registered. She's covering sales, Aaron said. Mara is here. The organizer turned to me. Did you authorize her to sell your work? No. Diane's hand closed around Paige's elbow. The organizer looked at the blue swallow on the counter, then at the tag still tied around its copper loop. Is this yours? I designed and made every piece in the stall. I opened the top crate on my cart. The inventory binder lay beneath a layer of foam. I pulled it out and found the festival section, application photographs, serial list, condition notes, and the contract I had read in the kitchen 6 weeks earlier. Aaron gave a quiet, furious laugh. You brought evidence against your own family. I brought inventory records to an inventory event. The organizer accepted the binder. She compared the swallow's tag to the list, then walked to the display wall and checked the tag on a red maple panel. GH-204, she read. I showed her the matching photograph. Paige folded her arms. No one is claiming I made them. The organizer looked at her. Your banner identifies this as Paige Mercer Home. It's curation. The festival doesn't permit private label resale in the juried pavilion. It isn't resale. We're working together. Then Miss Ellison needs to confirm that. Everyone looked at me. Diane's fingers tightened on Paige's sleeve. Aaron stood beside the cedar wall he had carried in for me, wearing the badge I had once been grateful to share with him. I could say Paige was helping. I could save the booth, the wedding, and whatever version of Aaron might come home after the festival and call the whole thing a misunderstanding. Then I saw the space beneath the counter where Paige had dropped the heron's torn blue tag. She had not removed a price label. She had removed my name. No, I said, we are not working together. Aaron's shoulders lowered, almost in relief. At last I had become the unreasonable woman he needed me to be. The organizer closed my binder. The contract requires approved inventory made and controlled by the accepted artist. The pitch can't be transferred separately from that inventory. She looked at me. You have 2 options. You can resume control of Glasshouse Studio under the approved presentation, or we close the booth for a contract violation. Diane spoke before I could. That would punish Mara, too. Surely Paige can stay as sales support. Not without the accepted artist's authorization and a registered badge. Mara, Aaron said quietly, think very carefully. I had. I took the second vendor badge from his shirt. The contract requires my inventory, I said. My inventory, my stall. His hand closed around my wrist. Not hard, just automatically, as if he could pause me. I looked down at his fingers. He let go. I turned to Paige. Every crate goes behind my counter. She stared at me, then at Aaron. You said she agreed. I said she would come around. That isn't the same thing. You knew she was being difficult. I knew what you told me. Diane reached for the banner ties. Paige, we're leaving. Wait. Paige crouched and pulled the torn tag from beneath the counter. She placed it beside my binder. The heron was $86, she said. Your reader took the payment before you logged it out. My price was $78. I told you she needed sales help, Diane said bitterly. The organizer handed Aaron a plain load-in wristband in exchange for my vendor badge. You can remove personal property, she told Paige. The booth must be restored to the approved studio name before inspection ends. Aaron's face had gone pale. What about the fee? He asked. It came out of our account. That's between you and Ms. Ellison. Festival acceptance belongs to the contracted artist. He looked at me one last time, waiting for me to make that less final. I took down Paige's banner. Ruth appeared 20 minutes later carrying coffee and a canvas bag full of clamps. She stopped outside the stall. I missed something. Only a rebrand. She studied my linen glasshouse sign, which I had found folded beneath Paige's chair. Ugly font? Very. Tragic. She clipped one side of my sign to the cedar beam while I secured the other. By the time the gates opened, the booth looked like mine again, though the displays had gaps where Paige had grouped pieces by color instead of design. I spent the first hour correcting prices and matching loose tags to their serial numbers. The woman who had bought the heron returned because she hadn't received a receipt. I think your salesperson overcharged me, she said. She wasn't my salesperson. The woman took in my face and decided not to ask. I refunded $8, reissued the receipt under Glasshouse Studio, and gave her a fresh tag for the piece. She tucked it carefully into the paper bag. The festival did not become easy after that. I sold well through lunch, then went nearly 2 hours without a purchase. A hanging bracket loosened on the marsh display, and I had to borrow a screwdriver. I ate half a granola bar while crouched behind the counter. Every time the pavilion doors opened, I looked up expecting Aaron. He never returned. Near closing, one of the gallery owners I recognized from previous years spent 15 minutes with the yellow irises photographs in my binder. The actual panel was still locked in the cooperative bay. I'd like to see that one in person, she said. I can bring it tomorrow. If it's as clean as these details, we can discuss a spring exhibit. It wasn't a rescue. It was an appointment. That felt better. Paige came back alone as I was covering the displays for the night. She had changed out of the cream blouse she'd worn for the booth and into jeans and a sweatshirt. Without Diane's banner behind her, she looked tired rather than polished. I need to know if that first transaction could come back on me, she said. It went through my account. Good. She held out her phone. On the screen was a message from Aaron sent 2 weeks earlier. Mara will fight because that's what she does when she's scared. Once we're set up, she won't risk losing the festival. Below it, Paige had asked. She definitely agreed to 15. Aaron had replied, she agreed, we need help. Leave the percentage to me. I scrolled. There were messages about the banner, the garage crates, and the early load-in. Diane had written that my artist temperament would settle once customers started buying. Aaron told Paige to use my reader because routing sales through her own business might look like a transferred booth. He knew the contract. I handed back the phone. Send those to me. Paige hesitated. You're going to use them against him. I'm going to keep them so he can't tell me this didn't happen. She sent the screenshots. I thought you knew about the stall, she said. Not the banner, exactly, but the arrangement. You kept selling after I arrived. Her face tightened. I had spent money. I'd told people I was launching, and you were standing there with a full cart while I had 12 pieces and a wrinkled sign. So you decided embarrassment entitled you to keep going. For about 5 minutes, yes. It was the first honest thing she had said to me all day. "I'm not apologizing for wanting a way back," she said. "I didn't ask you to." "I am sorry I used yours." She left before I could decide what to do with that. Aaron was sitting at the kitchen island when I got home. The partnership proposal lay in front of him, unfolded. "How was your festival?" he asked. "My stall did well." "Your stall?" "Yes." He nodded slowly. "Mom says you humiliated Paige. You lied to Paige. She showed you the messages. She showed me enough." He looked toward the dark garage. "I was trying to force the conversation you refused to have." "You took my inventory." "I moved it to the booth where it was going anyway." "You gave my badge, my counter, and my name to your sister. I thought once you saw it working, you'd understand. It wasn't working, it was taking." His chair scraped back. "I carried that business for years. You helped me because we loved each other. And now that counts for nothing." "It counted for what it was. You decided it was a down payment on control." He pressed both hands to the island. "I can apologize," he said. "I will. But you have to admit you escalated this too. Canceling wedding details, moving the work, freezing everyone out. If we're going to fix this, Glass House has to become a real partnership. Maybe not with Paige, just you and me." There it was again, his apology, waiting behind a condition. I slid the engagement ring off my finger. He watched it cross the granite between us. Mara. I kept asking what our marriage would protect. What does that even mean? It protects your mother from hearing no. It protects Paige from the consequences of believing you. It protects you from feeling unimportant. I looked at the ring. It doesn't protect me from any of you. You're ending this over a market stall? No, you were willing to lose me over one. I moved into a furnished apartment 2 weeks later. I reimbursed the household account for the full festival fee, canceled the wedding contracts in my name, and paid my share of the lease through the date Aaron found someone to take it over. He returned my tools in 3 loads. The first included every clamp and screwdriver. The second included kitchen utensils that weren't mine. The third contained the old workbench with the faded blue tag still pinned above it. Diane kept the copper leaves. They had been a gift. Paige opened a smaller booth the following spring with ceramics, woven runners, and candles she bought from their makers under written wholesale terms. She asked to carry my sun catchers. I declined. She said she understood, and for once, understanding ended the conversation. The gallery took the yellow irises and 4 new panels for its spring exhibit. On the morning I finished setting up my permanent work bay, I hung the first faded cobalt tag above the bench. Its number was almost gone, but the pin still fit through the old hole. Below it waited a row of fresh blue tags, each tied to something made by my hands, in a room with 1 steel door and 1 key. Mine.